While many Canadian businesses are struggling to keep the lights on because of rising taxes, energy costs, other things like this, the federal government is still managing to find room in its budget to spend tens of thousands of dollars on diversity consulting and training. I was looking through a contract list obtained under Access to Information and found $8,000 had been spent on a company called Martrain Consulting by Natural Resources Canada, which we know is usually focused on things like rocks and oil and all of that sort of stuff, not necessarily diversity training. And this contract I obtained to dig a little bit deeper, and it turned out the actual value was about 3 times as much as what the list said. It was over $24,000, and the purpose was to bring in a consultant to look at the hiring practices at the department. This is what the contract was really intended to find out. Evaluation, gaps analysis, and development of guidelines for bias-free evaluation and interview processes for hiring new employees. Total price tag $24,500. Going towards a company called Martrain, based out of Saskatchewan, run by diversity consultant Jean Martinson. Now, looking into this, the reason for the disparity in price was apparently because the contract was split up over 2 fiscal years, and that it went up until the end of the year and then continued on right after. So it looks a little bit different on paper. But the money actually came out of Natural Resources Canada's not operating budget, but the budget of its diversity group. They actually have within it a Visible Minority Advisory Council. They also have a Persons with Disabilities Network. They also have a Women's Network. All of these different groups underneath the banner of Natural Resources that have their own budgets, their own priorities, all to essentially segregate employees into focusing more on their identity rather than their overall job performance and job description. But I was looking into what actually went into this. It was a sole source contract, which means the government didn't open it up to vendors. They went directly to Martrain and said, here's what we'd like you to do. And in the process, it involved hours of interviews, employees going in and talking about their experiences at work. It asked them questions like, we all have an accent. Do you believe your accent has contributed to others' perception of your work competence or ability to fulfill your work goals? And of course, because this is federal government, you have to be bilingual. Jean Martinson had actually requested translators in all of her work groups, 4 translators in the session, so that everyone in both official languages would be able to understand what was happening when they were breaking out into sessions at these 90-minute seminars as they were happening in Ottawa. And looking into it, one thing that jumped off the page at me was this. They wanted information on subjective culture areas that trigger misunderstanding in the hiring process. And look at what some of these things are. Understanding power hierarchy, understanding the ability to talk about your own accomplishment. I didn't think these were subjective cultural areas. This is just called a job interview. But apparently they're looking at a system where this is somehow discriminatory or possibly discriminatory, or you see that word there, triggering to people as they go through a hiring process. And look, I'm all for having fair and balanced hiring procedures, but the fact that this department has a Visible Minority Advisory Council suggests they're already pretty aware of this. This seems like just a way to spend money into this diversity industry. And this is certainly fueled by the fact that it seems like the advisory council in question didn't even have enough money in its own budget to do this, so they started pulling all of these different money from different budgets, from different groups under the same banner of Natural Resources Canada. And I know from looking at other contracts here that this is not something that just exists for the whole government of Canada. Each ministry, each department is undertaking a lot of these things on its own, and you guessed it, paying tens of thousands of dollars each time. We'll continue to bring those to you, but for crying out loud, can we not accept that maybe we've already gone a little bit too far here, given that diversity is an industry rather than a goal? For the Rebel.media, I'm Andrew Lawton. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to keep checking out the Rebel.media for lots more great content. And check out the premium memberships. Not a lot of money, and the investment you will put in will come back tenfold when you get stuff that you won't see anywhere in the mainstream media. Only at the Rebel.media.